Hey, late fire starter here, and today I want to talk about why Los Angeles is a horrible place to invest in real estate, at least for some strategies, and look at some possible examples. So, if you haven't been to my channel yet, welcome, and if you could subscribe because we won't miss out on all this great stuff on my journey. My journey is to financial independence and retire early. That's what FIRE starts for. And I started late in my life, and so really I'm focusing on real estate investment, cash flowing properties, and dividend stocks. So before we go anywhere, just go ahead and hit that little thumbs up and give me a like, and that'll be wonderful. Did you do it? Go ahead, hit like. Okay, thanks so much. Have you ever heard of the 1% rule? The 1% rule is a quick way to measure whether or not a real estate purchase is a good investment or not. It is not the way to go. You do not buy simply on the 1% rule, but it's a good starting point to know if the price point is going to work for you. The 1% rule simply says this: you should get 1% of the purchase price in monthly rents. So, for example, if it's a $300,000 house that you're purchasing, you would want to make sure that the rent was $3,000 a month, or 1% of $300,000. If you have less than 1%, it gets harder to cash flow on that property. If you have more than 1%, it gets easier to cash flow on that property. Other elements that affect cash flow are going to be taxes, your interest rate on your mortgage, and your payment, or if you even have a mortgage. But if you don't have a mortgage at all, you're pretty much going to cash flow, right? You're going to have different maintenance expenses, whether or not you have utility costs. So if it's an apartment building or a duplex and it's shared water, you're going to be having to pay for the water. So there's different things to take into account to see if you're going to cash flow or not. But generally, the 1% rule is just a great thing to have in your head when you're looking at potential markets to invest in. Well, in Los Angeles, where I live, the 1% rule is dead on arrival. You cannot find properties at 1%, okay? For example, let's just use my first property I bought in Los Angeles in the city of Gardena in 2016. I bought that property for $210,000, and at the time, you could not find anything in the entire LA area that was that cheap and livable, okay? I was searching high and dry for something in that range, and the only other things I was seeing were really small houses that were going to need at least $100,000 worth of work to get livable, or things like that. And so I made an offer on this 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath condo for $210,000, which was incredibly cheap for the LA area. Because of the area it was in, it was a little beat down, but to me it was an up-and-coming area. And so I went ahead and I made the offer. There was a tenant in there at the time paying almost $1,900. And so if you look at 1% of $210,000, okay, I would have needed $2,100 in rent to hit that 1% mark. However, when I worked all my numbers and I looked at what my mortgage cost was going to be, what the HOAs were going to be, my taxes, insurance, all these things, I noticed that what she was paying in rent covered all my expenses, and I was going to cash flow a little bit. Not too much, but still, it was a safe investment for me. Fast forward 4 years, okay? Same tenants in there, $2,425, okay? So if you do the 1% rule the opposite way, that place would sell for $242,500. Okay. Right now, my place just got appraised for $380,000, and units in there are selling for closer to $400,000. So let's just take the low end. Let's even take lower. Let's say I have to sell it quick. So I sell it for $360,000. 1% of $360,000 would be $3,600 a month in rent. I'm not even close to that. If I tried to charge $3,600 a month for that condo, nobody would take it, because you could find other rentals in the area closer to that $2,500 range. I could maybe get $2,800 for my place, but there's no way I'm getting close to $3,600. Now, this is Los Angeles. Of course, there are places that you could rent for $3,600. You could find places that rent for $10,000. But when you look at all of them, the 1% rule is nowhere close. For example, you go west a little bit. You head towards the beach. You go all the way to the beach. You go to Manhattan Beach and you're renting out a house that is walkable to the beach. A 3-bedroom house in Manhattan Beach could fetch you about $10,000 a month in rent. So at $10,000 a month in rent, that's $1 million house. Well, maybe that house was $1 million 15 years ago, but that's a $3 million house now. So you're actually fetching 0.33%, a third of 1%. And as you look at these numbers, you realize these properties cannot cash flow, except if you put in enough money so that your loan payment is low. But then that sort of defeats the purpose. When you buy an investment property, you need to put 25% down. So you're already putting a ton of equity. You're already putting a ton of your liquid assets. You're already taking so much of your money just to get in here to lock in that low interest rate of 30 years. But majority of properties in Los Angeles, that even after you pay that 25%, you're still going to be paying monthly to sustain a tenant in there. In other words, you get a tenant to cover your expenses, but they won't cover all your expenses. So you've already got 25% in here, and now you're also spending money every month. Now, there's lots of people who will say that's worth it because you're buying a house for much less than you could have, even though you don't live there, and your tenant's paying a majority of your principal and interest. That's true. Okay? But if you're trying to cash flow, this is a negative cash flow proposition. And for me personally, I want to be able to own multiple properties, and the only way for me to do that is to cash flow on each one. If each one was costing me, if each one was negative cash flowing, I would have a very finite number of what I could purchase and own. But if every property is cash flowing, there's really an infinite amount that you could own. So cash flow is very important. That leads to really two reasons people invest, two main reasons, okay? One is cash flow, the other is appreciation, okay? So cash flow is what I'm looking for. Why? Because I'm not in my 20s, I'm looking to build enough cash flow, enough monthly cash flow to live off so I'm financially independent sooner rather than later. Appreciation is where you can make a lot of money. In fact, if you notice, in 4 years, I've cash flowed on that property in Gardena, maybe $500 a month for 4 years. Okay, you're looking at $6,000 a year. So in 4 years, I've maybe cash flowed $24,000 on that property, which is amazing, right? That's great. However, I bought it for $210 and I can sell it for $380. So that's $170,000 in appreciation. So you see why people are drawn to appreciation. It's the big money, but none of it's guaranteed. Cash flow is a little more secure and guaranteed, but even cash flow is not guaranteed. And because I'm looking to cash flow, my market, Los Angeles, is not a viable market. And that's why I chose to invest out of state. My second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever purchases, all were out of state. I did not buy in California. I did not buy in Los Angeles. And so what I want to talk to you next in my next video about is where out of state I went, why I chose that market, and what my experience has been investing out of state. So once again, please subscribe and like this video, and go ahead and hit that notification button so you know my next video, which will be about where out of state, okay? How did I do it, and what were some of my pitfalls? Thanks so much for watching The Late Firestarter. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.